In the last lesson, we sketched out this test for preventing people from purchasing more tickets than remain for a given concert, and in this lesson, we're going to work towards getting this test to pass. So the first thing we're going to do is run this test and see what our first error is. So we're getting an error on line 86 of our test that says the add tickets method is not defined. And of course this method is not defined. So we could try and drive out this method using the feature test to guide us, but I think a better approach would be to drop down to the unit test level to drive out this add tickets behavior. So to get started, let's head over to our concert test class and add a new test to the bottom. To keep it simple, we'll just call this test can add tickets. And in our arrange step, we'll just create a concert. And then for our act phase, we'll try and add some tickets to that concert. So maybe add tickets 50. And then we can just try and assert that the concert does in fact have 50 tickets remaining. So we can just say assert equals 50, concert tickets remaining, which is another method that doesn't exist yet, but we'll drive out through this test. So let's run this individual test and see what error we get. So again, we see the error that the add tickets method does not exist. So let's head over to our concert class and add that method. So just down at the bottom here for now, we'll add an add tickets method that takes a quantity, and we'll head back and run the test again to see what our next error is. So if we run this test, we now see that our next error is that the tickets remaining method is yet to be defined. So let's head back to the concert and we'll add this tickets remaining method. And we'll just run the test again and find out what the next thing we need to do is. So now rather than our code just erroring out because we were missing the methods that we were expecting to exist, we're getting a true logical error, which is that null and 50 are not the same. So now we can use this opportunity to drive out the actual logical implementation and get this passing. So if we head back to the concert test, let's think about what this tickets remaining method is going to need to do. So up until now, tickets have only been related to orders. If we look at SQL Pro here, we can see that our tickets table has an order ID column, but no concert ID column. If we're saying that we're going to be able to create tickets and associate them with a concert before we actually sell those tickets and add them to an order, then we're going to need to define a relationship between the concerts and the tickets. So let's just assume that relationship existed for the purposes of getting through this test. I think what we would have is something like return this tickets count. I think this would be the absolute simplest implementation that might help us get this concert test passing down here. So let's just run this test again and see what the error is. And I think it's going to be something about that tickets relationship not being defined. So we do in fact see that error that tickets is not defined. So let's head back to the concert and add that relationship. We'll just stick it up under our orders relationship here. So we can just add a public function tickets. We can just return this has many ticket class. And now if we head back to our test and run that again, hopefully we'll see a different error. So now we're getting an error that the tickets table has no concert ID column. So let's head over to our create tickets table migration and add that column. So we'll just add it above the order ID column here for now. So we'll just say concert ID is also an unsigned integer. And let's run that test again and check out the next error. So now we're seeing that we're getting 0 back when we expected 50. So that means that adding the tickets is of course not actually adding the tickets to the concert. So now we have to think about what adding tickets is actually going to mean. If we look up at order tickets, there's this section here where we're creating all of the new tickets for that order. I think what we want to do is something pretty similar to this, except we'll be creating tickets that we're associating with the concert directly rather than through an order. So let's copy this loop to get started and we'll stick that in here. And now instead of order tickets, this is going to be this tickets. And we'll rename this ticket quantity variable to match the parameter that's coming in here. And if we go back and run the test again, hopefully we get a different error. So let's run it. And now we're seeing a more interesting error. We're getting an error that a not null constraint failed because we're trying to create tickets, but we haven't provided an order ID. So this is because previously we weren't creating tickets until there was an order to associate them with. But now we want to have tickets exist that don't necessarily have an order yet. So we can use this error to sort of give us permission to make this order ID column nullable. So now we can create new tickets that have no order ID until they've actually been sold and associated with an order. So let's run the test again and see if that gets us any further. Great, so now this test is passing. You might be thinking to yourself, though, that this implementation doesn't look quite right. This is just counting all the tickets that are associated with a concert, not just the tickets that are actually remaining. Now, you might be tempted to go and add a where clause here, right? What we really want here, I think, ultimately at the end of the day, is to only count tickets where the order ID is null. The problem with this is that we don't have any test coverage for this yet. We have nothing saying that tickets remaining should only count the tickets that haven't been associated with an order. So if we were to just add this without test coverage, there's a risk that we could accidentally delete this where clause at some point and our tests would all still pass even though the system wouldn't be working correctly. So rather than getting ahead of ourselves and adding that where clause directly now, let's write another test for that behavior. So let's head over to our concert test here and add another test, and we'll call this something like tickets remaining does not include tickets associated with an order. So first, let's create a new concert. Then we'll add some tickets to that concert. So we'll add 50 tickets again. And now we're going to order some tickets. So we can copy maybe this line up here where Jane was ordering 3 tickets. Maybe this time though, Jane will order 30 tickets. And we don't actually need this order variable here, so we won't assign that. So this is our whole arrange step this time. Even ordering the tickets is part of sort of setting up the world. And now for our act step and our assertion, I think what we want to do is just assert that 20 is equal to the tickets remaining. So since we started with 50 tickets and we ordered 30 tickets, we want to make sure that tickets remaining only shows the 20 tickets that haven't been associated with an order yet. So let's run this test and see what we get. So interestingly, we're actually getting a sort of unexpected error here. We're getting an error that we tried to create a ticket without providing a concert ID. And the reason this is happening is that in our concert class, up in the order tickets method, which we're using as part of our setup, we're creating new tickets to associate with the order instead of just allocating the tickets that already exist. So how can we fix this error? Well, instead of creating new tickets for the order, what we want to do is we want to fetch tickets from the database that are already associated with the concert and then just add the order ID to those tickets. So underneath this order line, let's get some tickets. We could say something like tickets equals this tickets, and then we can use take to specify how many tickets we want to take, and in that case this is the ticket quantity. And then we can call get to execute that query, and now we should have some tickets. And then instead of iterating over the ticket quantity here, let's just loop over all of the tickets. And then instead of saying order tickets create and creating a new ticket, we can just say order tickets save and pass in the ticket that we want to save and associate with that order. So with any luck, this should get us past that error and hopefully onto something new. So let's run this test again and see what we see. So we're getting an error that the tickets remaining method is not defined, so we must have a typo in our test. So let's check out line 85 in our concert test. Yes, we're calling this tickets remaining, but we should be calling concert tickets remaining. So let's run this test again and see what we get. Okay, so now we're getting an error that 50 tickets came back instead of 20. And this is actually what we wanted because this is going to force us to add that where clause in our tickets remaining method. So let's head over to our concert class, and now in the tickets remaining method, we can say this tickets where null order ID count instead of just getting all of the tickets. So let's run this test in our concert test again and see what we get. And now that test is passing. So let's run all of the tests in our concert test file and see if we have any other things to clean up. So we're getting a failure in our can order concert tickets test on line 65. So in the next lesson, we'll take a look at what that is and work towards getting the rest of these tests passing again.